Good morning. Our first item of business this morning is a debate on the independent budget review. Could I invite all members who wish to speak in the debate to press their request to speak buttons?
Before I call Dave Thompson, can I remind you it's about 6.5 minutes. Dave Thompson to be followed by Tom McCabe.
Well, thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. May I first congratulate the Scottish Government for commissioning this independent budget review, and also thank the review panel themselves for their widely praised and respected report. Our economic prospects are certainly not good, but I believe are being made worse by the Lib-Con ideology, which is over-enthusiastic about slashing public services. Their proposals are regressive, and the widely respected Institute of Fiscal Studies estimates that the poorest 10% of families will lose over 5% of their income, while the richest 10% of households without children will lose less than 1%. The impact of a 2.5% increase in VAT will also be greatest for low-income households, and the freeze in child benefit for 3 years will reduce the income of 621,000 families in Scotland, with the greatest proportionate effect being on low-income families. The Lib-Cons are making the poorest pay for Labour's recession.
Andy Kerr. I thank the member for giving way. Could I give him this quote? The real example of Ireland, and all nationalists need to take note of this, is that the economic miracle was a product of reduction in government size from 51% of GDP through to 41%. Mike Russell, does he share those views?
Mr Thompson.
I think the members should accept that this recession was not a worldwide recession that just happened on its own. The Labour Party were in power, banking regulation, etc. was lifted, and I'm just going to come to that just now. And in looking at how we got here, it's worth noting that a closely allied economy similar to the UK's did not see a banking crisis in the past 3 years and did not see a recession. That economy is the Australian one. And National Australia Bank, the highly successful international banking group that owns the Clydesdale Bank, is headquartered in Australia and subject to Australian regulation. It's no surprise then that Clydesdale Bank was one of the few UK banks that was largely unaffected by the crisis. And you may be wondering why this was. Well, simply, Australia had retained the robust banking regulation that used to be run in the UK by the sharp-minded civil servants in the Department of Trade and Industry. Now, this robust regulation was abandoned by the Tories and Labour to the benefit of city bankers, but at great public cost. What we witnessed, of course, was the catastrophic leaven that consecutive Tory and Labour governments have had with the bloated City of London. A leaven that Gordon Brown admitted to early in the recent general election campaign. The same Gordon Brown who left office with the highest peacetime debt in history. Now, your SNP government has to deal with the consequences of this mismanagement by successive UK governments, and the last Labour government in particular. Westminster insists on banking regulations and other such matters being reserved to London, but has proved itself monumentally incapable of sound financial management of our assets. The competence of your SNP government, in contrast, puts the UK government, in the shade. As to the future, well, the independent budget review suggests a number of options. I need to make progress. That could be considered to address. If I had given way to all the interventions so far, I wouldn't be able to do any of my speech, so you must bear with me. So there are a number of options that could be considered to address the forthcoming budget cuts to Scotland's block grant. The block grant pocket money we get back from London after first sending them the tax collected from hard-working Scottish families and well-run Scottish businesses. If only we had the independence and full financial freedom that we need to do things differently and avoid much of this ideologically driven London-inflicted pain.
I'm grateful. The biggest tool with regards to the economy affecting all businesses, all mortgages in Scotland, is the interest rates. Why is the interest rate set by the Bank of England? why is it the SNP policy that on independence the Bank of England would continue to set interest rates for the Scottish economy?
The crucial point is that if we had independent financial freedom, we would be able to have let me answer your question, Mr Purvis, have a full toolkit to deal with the problems that arise here. We would make different decisions on spending. We would deal with the depth and the speed of the cuts differently. We would not waste money on renewing the Trident nuclear missiles. We would have borrowing powers to allow us more flexibility. We would do things differently in relation to VAT and the freeze on child benefit. The fossil fuels levy wouldn't be languishing in a bank in London. It would be getting put to good use in Scotland. All of these things are the things we could do if we could make our own minds up, which you don't want us to be able to do. Now, a number of the options suggested by the IBR have been, I'm pleased to say, ruled out by your Scottish Government. For instance, as has already been said, free personal care is safe under the SNP. Free concessionary travel is also safe under the SNP. There will be no limiting of existing eligibility, and in fact it will be extended to include injured service personnel and veterans from next April. I know that the bus pass is a benefit widely appreciated in the Highlands and Islands, and in fact a constituent came into my recent Fort William surgery to specifically make the point that it should continue, as she had heard the untrue opposition scare stories of its removal. I was, of course, able to reassure her that with the SNP in power, this benefit is safe. Take up with the scheme for those over 60 was 79% in 2008 and will rise to 1 million by 2016. Evidence also suggests the largest increase in take-up since the scheme's introduction has been amongst those aged 60 to 69 on lower incomes and those without access to a car, the very people we should be trying to help in these hard times. It is also worth noting the Scottish concessionary travel scheme is already far more generous than the system in England. We get free bus travel at all times across the country from the age of 60.
Be finishing now, Mr.
Whereas
Thompson.
England's, just 2 more points, England's is off-peak, excludes long distance and is going up to 65 in line with the increase in women's state pension age. The question for the opposition
You should be finishing now, Mr. Thompson.
Will they guarantee the bus pass as we have done? A simple yes or no answer will do.